Live. Hi.
Hi, we're here at the house in Berkeley in California, and we're here to answer your questions should you have any. To start, we have a few questions from our editor, Natalie. So one of them was, what was something that you didn't expect? So whoever wants to take that one first. Rachel, it's on you.
I wasn't expecting this question. I don't know. I mean, we've been doing a lot. If you've been following our journey, we've been going to a lot of different places, meeting with all sorts of people. And so something that I didn't quite expect was how willing people were going to be to talk to us and share their stories. I mean, obviously that's also a challenge sometimes because there are people who don't want to share their story, but since we've been here in the Bay Area, we've been able to talk to people who live in the Fillmore district, and we just interviewed the Reverend of the First Baptist Church last night, and he was able to give us
First Baptist.
Third Baptist Church, who was able to give us the history of the church and also of the neighborhood, and so that was a really cool experience.
And do you guys have anything to add to that, or would you? Yeah.
To add my own question, one thing that I enjoyed is talking to some of the icons in each of the places that we've been to. One that sticks out is Ewell Hall in Kentucky. Really legendary 90-year-old woman who's provided healthcare to a lot of people, and just hearing her words of wisdom and her take on healthcare debate at the time was awesome. And then, very similar to that, Reverend Amos Brown at Third Baptist Church. He was a student under Martin Luther King, and he's probably the best orator and public speaker I've ever heard. And just to hear, sit in church and listen to his take on the current political climate and current violence and things like that was really enlightening. His words of wisdom were awesome to hear, and then we were able to sit down with him for an interview yesterday. And those are moments that stick out to me as things that I've enjoyed.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, you're talking about these speakers that were kind of very prolific. What about speakers who were a little bit more quiet? What was kind of your way? I've always wondered that as a photographer. What's your way of getting them to open up to you and talk to you about things that are more deep?
Just average people on the street.
Yeah. How do you get them to talk about a lot of these topics we've been covering?
I think everybody has an opinion about a lot of these things, whether it's healthcare debate or race issues or income inequality. Whether they label it as those things or not, a lot of people have thoughts about these things. So I think just trying to be as conversational as possible when reporting is good, especially with people that you meet. You want to treat them as people, not as subjects first. And approaching them, asking them how their day is going, where they come from, how they're feeling, that sort of thing, and just easing into topics and maybe not even throwing around jargon and not throwing around what do you think of the Affordable Care Act, or what do you think of this, and you gotta sort of break it down into terms that are good to talk about. So
yeah. And I was going to ask you, Gabriel, what, for you, you're coming into this as someone who has been in the service and as someone who came to the United States when they were 8, so you have, a wide variety of diverse experiences that you're able to, talk to people about. So what about those experiences do you feel have come into play during this journey?
Immigration has been a huge thing to get marginalized communities to understand that you are there to treat them fairly. They have to kind of know that you've been through what they've experienced, and I faced a lot of racism when I came to the United States, and I'm not dark-skinned, so I can only imagine what people who look a little more like an immigrant than I do might go through.
Yeah, and that came into play when you were leading us in Minneapolis to report on these communities. That what did you see there as far as we all I think learned about the way these communities have been portrayed in the media. What was your take on that as someone who lives in Minneapolis? did you kind of always know that they were being portrayed like this and wanted to do it right?
I wasn't quite a member of I wasn't a media practitioner when I noticed what was happening. I wish I hadn't been impeded as much as I was in Minneapolis in treating the Somali community fairly. I certainly tried to approach it in an ethical way, and I was stopped at several instances. But I think we did the best we could with what we had.
Yeah, definitely. And another question for anyone who wants to answer it, and pretty much anyone who's watching, you're allowed to comment and ask us questions. Something a little bit more lighthearted. What was your most cherished experience? Do you want to answer that?
These questions are always hard because whenever someone is asking you what's the best experience or what's the most cherished experience, puts a lot of pressure on the response. But I think that for us to be able to go into the high schools has been a highlight for me, and to be able to work with a lot of the young people who are might be great reporters in the future, or they're the people who are really helping us connect to the community. And so meeting all of the young people has been awesome. And also, I don't know, just going across the country is a pretty unique experience, to see what similarities and differences are in each place. It's been valuable.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to take the phone? I can answer if you guys want.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll record.
Yeah, you've been doing the vlog this entire time, so you definitely know the shots. I wanted to answer the question of kind of going off of what was one of my most cherished, and it's kind of funny because I know Lizzie is watching right now, so I wanted to give her a shout out. But meeting Lizzie in Eastern Kentucky, I've talked about a lot in the high schools about how impactful that was for me, because I was meeting someone who had been through a lot more than I could even imagine, but we still had a lot of things in common and a lot of things that were similar, and I just really appreciated her openness, and to be around someone who was so willing and forthcoming with her story was a huge inspiration to me, and gave me a lot of hope for the future of photojournalism. If you can collaborate with people and really take into account their experiences and how that relates to the present. So
Lizzie
really
says,
stoked.
"Ah, girl, heart, crying."
Lizzie.
Hi, Lizzie. I know you're watching.
Hi. So yeah, I wanted to take the time to give her a shout out on that, because that's such a brave thing to do as a high school student, is go up to a journalist that you don't know and be here is all of me, here's something that's so big about who I am. So that was one of the most impactful things for me. Yeah. So I think we have a few more and then we can wrap up, but one of the things that Natalie posed to us was where would you go again if you had the option to? For me, that was Montana, because Montana was gorgeous, and I can go back to Kentucky because I have family there, but Montana was insanely beautiful. What about you?
Ooh, I would go back to, I'd probably go back to just about any of them, because when you're working all the time, you don't really get to fully experience it. And your conversations with a waiter or something, or a person that you meet, you're always ooh, what can I use of this for my story? And sometimes that's... Anyways, I would go back to any of they all had beautiful parts to them. I didn't expect Kentucky to be as beautiful as it was, with the mountain ranges there, and then Montana, same thing. And I would go back to Minneapolis to go to the Mall of America. Something I miss.
We missed a lot of Minneapolis.
So I would definitely go back. Maybe not during the winter, but I would go back.
All right. You have to go in the winter.
Yeah, we have to test your resilience, Eric.
Yeah.
No,
You have to experience a negative 20 wind chill.
Yeah.
All right.
What's something that you guys feel what's your biggest takeaway from this, just about the state of journalism?
Rachel.
Oh man, why do I have to start?
We're going around in a circle.
Yeah, we're kind of working our way in a circle.
I guess my biggest takeaway is that to be an effective journalist, with the current state of things, you have to be pretty creative and find ways of reaching an audience besides just maybe being a radio reporter or just being a newspaper reporter. And that doesn't mean that you try to do everything, but with this project, we've got live Instagram, we've got Twitter, we've got Snapchat, and so I think that people are going to, I don't know, like there will be a lot of changes with all of the mediums, and I think people are going to have to get creative.
Yeah, I think, not that I disagree, but I think like the phrase, what is it? Master of all, Jack
of all trades, master of none.
I think that's extremely relevant. I think like in a lot of journalism schools, they teach you that you have to do everything, and you have to be able to take photos, and you have to be able, like these struggling newsrooms that we went into, some of the newsrooms that we partnered with that are sort of dealing with like the struggles of running a newspaper in 2017 and stuff. A lot of them had like no photographers, or they had like their photography staff was the reporters using their iPhones or their iPads to take pictures, and that's like I'd worked with photographers at newspapers and stuff, and some of my friends in journalism school were photographers, but working with Brittany, I learned like that it's an important skill that's like I can't just take pictures for my own article with my iPhone, because like they won't tell a story and they won't be impactful. So that's how I sort of felt being taught, like, you're a writer, but you need to do X, and X, and you need to be able to take video, and you need to be able to do photo. I thought that was kind of, I questioned that when I was taught that, and this reinforced that for me, that like everybody needs to have a specialty almost. Because like what's the point of trying to do a million things well?
No, definitely. That's like an excellent point, because like what's the point of like doing 5 things if you're going to be mediocre at them?
User Tyrannosaurus Rex asks, of all the stories you've covered, which story/issue do you wish you could do more coverage of?
All of them. I think it's we did the best we could trying to tell really enterprising, important stories in a matter of 5 to 10 days, but all these issues are worthy of covering more, and I think they'll carry through my career in like income inequality and its impact on education, or healthcare access, and debates in Washington trying to take that away, or how we manage forests so that more people don't get engulfed by forest fires, and here gentrification, all these how immigrant communities are treated by their governments and the police and things like that. I think each of the stories that we did, I think like I could imagine doing 10 more stories on each of the topics.
Yeah, and like I think this has taught me that we need to be big advocates of local newspapers and local newsrooms, because what really is essential, I think, for the future of journalism is like giving a lot of time to like reporting on these issues, because I think the biggest thing that I learned from this is you can't go in with like a preconceived idea of what's on the ground. You have to like get there and absorb information, and recognize like how complex things are. Like people's existence and their opinions aren't always these like simple one-sided things. There are a lot of people caught in the middle in like this divide we've been covering. So I think local newspapers used to do that. They used to like cover their communities with a little bit more nuance and complexity, and then we lost a lot of local newspapers and lost hearing those voices.
I wonder if this is a Chad that I think it is. Chad Bates asked, regarding all 5 places that the team visited, was there any stereotypes that you guys had prior to visiting the area that were wrong?
That's a good question. I guess it wasn't a stereotype, but it was like a perception that people, when I was covering the Flathead Reservation, I was just really surprised by how open everyone was. I was worried that they wouldn't be open to me just because of how they've been portrayed in the past. But I would like walk in somewhere and be like, can I take your picture? Like really nervous that the answer would be no. I'm like, yeah, sure, like whatever. Like it was just really eye-opening that they were still really open to me and like saw when I was like honest about my intentions to do the story about tribal forest fire management. They like genuinely heard that and trusted me, and that was like a big deal.
Anyone else on the stereotypes?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to like give myself too much credit for like thinking that all people are, you know, the same or at the core or whatever. Like, but I don't know. I didn't necessarily go into Kentucky thinking that I'd be seeing a bunch of toothless hillbillies or anything. Like, I know that there are bad stereotypes out there of pretty much everybody in every place that we've gone. But one of the things that stuck out to me is just that everybody, you know, maybe we're not as divided as some people think we are.
I agree.
Everybody has, like, there's just so many similarities between, like, what kids in high school in Kentucky struggle with and what kids in the inner city in Oakland struggle with. There's just, you know, everything, the terrain's different, the cities are different, the places are different, but, like, the people, when it comes down to it, everybody, there are some very universal, like, struggles and that people go through. So, yeah, I was sort of struck by how alike we all are when you look at it a certain way and when you spend time with people.
Yeah, I have so many photos of like I spent a lot of time with people just trying to like figure out who they were, and a lot of the people would tell me like backgrounds about their lives and things they had gone through. And we also saw that through the Narrative 4 story exchanges, was that like we're all, especially teenagers, are going through like a lot of the same things. And I wish there was a way to like communicate that like from all sides so that there would be more unity in this country.
Yeah. And when we talk about a divide in America, the divide, after this trip, just thinking back, like, the divide is highly political. It's highly orchestrated and highly charged, and it's, you know, there's a lot of divisive rhetoric and politicians working against the interests of their constituents, and it's just, like we saw in Kentucky, you know, I was talking to people that used Obamacare, and it, you know, saved some people's lives, but the politicians there wanted to yank it away because instead of just fixing it, they wanted to repeal it, and because they couldn't handle the fact that Obama's name was on it. So there's just this weird dynamic where, like, the people that you talk to are very grounded and very sort of have a lot of common sense. But, like, it's a highly political divide, I guess.
Katie Stumbo 02S, what was one of the biggest challenges y'all faced on this journey, and how did you overcome it? There's been a few.
Yeah. There's been a lot.
Like, obviously, time is always difficult. And, yeah, I mean, back to one of the questions previously about, you know, where would you go if you could go back to do some more reporting? And when I was in Kentucky, right at the end of that period of time when we were reporting in Kentucky, I stumbled across something that I would like to report on, and that's like what people are trying to do with basically restoring the top of coal mining areas. And so, you know, if we had been there for maybe another week or two, I probably would have done a second story or expanded my first story to include something with that.
Okay. And then Lizzie asks, before being part of the Crossing the Divide project, how big was the meaning of empathy in each of your lives? How did it change throughout time?
Yeah,
Brittany Strewing.
I think I learned a lot about empathy through this project. More so coming from the perspective that I think before this project, to be honest, like to be like blatantly honest, I thought that there was a lot of like blatant ignorance in the world, and that people were like willingly choosing that ignorance, choosing to be like intolerant of others. And then I think I, through this project, realized that there's like this plight of the working class where they're sold like this politicized message, and that it's not that this like blatant disregard or intolerance to others is coming like from their own mind. It's just like an idea that they're being sold. And so I became a little bit more empathetic when I was hearing people out and like talking to them, and they would say things that like I knew factually weren't true. I think I didn't look at them any longer as like, oh, you're just like willfully ignorant. I think it's just like they didn't know, and they're still learning, and I think we're all still learning. So that's how I've improved, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's a wrap. We've been going at it for 30 minutes.
Oh,
but
wait,
anyone
Chad.
else has any question? Chad.
Okay, Chad.
On a lighter note, did you guys get to go to any more football games? No.
I wish.
No, we didn't get to.
Oh, we didn't.
No, Chad, just your games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Miss Sloan is behind this.
Oh,
There's a lot
yeah.
of Miss Sloan students in this.
Yes. Well, hello to Miss Mary Sloan.
Yeah.
She was great.
Thank you for giving us an actual crowd.
We hope
Yes.
the Jaguars finish the season well. I assume it's, or maybe it's
It
not
might be
over.
over.
No, there's got to be like a Thanksgiving game.
What are some common themes you encountered in the high schoolers' experience? As a username that I won't attempt to read.
Oh, I think one of the common experiences was, I think a lot of people expressed disappointment in their parents.
Oh.
And
They're not Cheetos, they're carrots.
yeah, I wish they were.
Someone said the Cheetos are good for me. Sorry, I interrupted
Yeah.
you. Common experiences.
I'm hungry.
Go Jags, that's Chad.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
one of the biggest common experiences among teenagers was that coming of age point when you're like 16 and you realize that your parents aren't superheroes. And a lot of kids at the high schools expressed that like their parents had done something that disappointed them.
Hmm.
And that's part of adulthood, to start realizing that adults are disappointing too.
Ooh. All right.
And then other one is definitely a lot of people coming to terms with their sexuality and being really open about those struggles. I thought that was really awesome to hear. It's like the generation's clearly like taking ownership of that, and they clearly feel very empowered.
Lizzie says, thank you guys for answering my question. It was a pleasure meeting you all. I hope we cross paths again later on when I further my career. Much love from Kentucky.
Girl,
Likewise.
I'm coming for ya.
Likewise, Lizzie.
Coming to that prom.
Oh, there's Malia. Hey.
Hey.
All right. Well,
We're wrapping up unless you have
Yes.
anything you want to
all right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I'll turn it around. Thank you guys for joining us. It's been real. It's been fun. Brittany's doing a dance. All right.
Something like that.
Okay.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Press end and then I think
I'll
it
press
says
on. There it goes. Oh, no.
Does it say save?
No. Here. End my video.
Okay. Yeah.